Hey everyone, Amy Belzer-Tennant here, the Genealogy Reporter, and today is Genealogy Tip Tuesday, and we're talking about U.S. church records. I want to draw your attention to this fantastic book. It's titled How to Find Your Family History in U.S. Church Records, a Genealogist's Guide. It's written by Sunny Jane Morton and Harold Henderson. This book has really been an inspiration to me. I have always known about using church records for genealogy, but honestly, it's one of the latter things I look for, and maybe that really shouldn't be the case. This book covers two big sections. Family history research within the church records. It talks about what you might find, how to identify what church your ancestor might have gone to just by figuring out where they came from or where they currently lived. Then it goes through denomination by denomination and talks a little bit about what that religion's records look like and where to find them. It really is a genealogist's guide to church records in the United States. It's fantastic. And you can get this at genealogical.com or amazon.com. I'll put a link in the video description below. So why do we need to look at church records? Well, let's go way back to colonial America. Colonial American research is tough, right? Records are a little more sparse. They weren't necessarily keeping birth records and death records like they do today. But you know, in colonial America, some places required church attendance. And because of that church attendance, records were made, whether that's baptismal christenings, which often give us birth dates and a birth location, possibly parents' names, witnesses, godparents' names, but also death information. Death information is more than just the day they died. Some churches will record their cause of death or where they were buried. Even, again, parents' names possibly. One of the things I found absolutely fascinating about church records that I hadn't really considered before is it is a way to track your ancestor from place to place, like creating a migration trail, if you will. Because a lot of times, if an individual was moving from location to location, they would take a letter of recommendation from one church to the other. So wherever they were leaving from, those church records might say something like, left with a letter of recommendation headed to such and such a location. If the individual died, a church register might include that this person had recently died and what day they died, and that's the reason why they're no longer going to appear on the records of the church. Now, let's say your individual, all of a sudden shows up in this place, and you have no idea where in the world they came from. They've lived here for decades and decades and decades, and you're following them back in time, and you wonder, where did they come from? Well, in the church records, it is possible that they might have a little notation that says something along the lines of, this individual brought a letter of recommendation from such and such a place. Boom. Now you know where your ancestor may have come from, and you can easily go back to that location and start doing your vital record research to further your family tree. Now, obviously, church records are not only about christening information, marriages, death. You might get parents' names because of that. And this migration info. There are sometimes scandalous things that can be found in these church records. And we might chuckle a little bit about it, but actually, even the scandalous information, if we can extract or read between the lines, we might put together a little bit more information about that family story or family lore or something like that. For example, my adopted daughter knew that she had a Native American heritage, but we didn't know what tribe that was. In researching church records of her birth family, I ran across this fantastic prenuptial investigation for her Catholic ancestors. Now, I'm talking way far back, okay? 1803 is when this record was made. So I'm going to read it to you, and you will see that even though this is a scandalous story and you think, what, I don't need to know all that, what we learn is absolutely crucial to the question of what Native American tribe is my daughter affiliated with through her ancestry. Francisco Guruli, over 30, meaning age, the legitimate son of Ignacio Gurule and Melchora Gutierrez, both deceased. So we got two more grandparents' names. And Maria Barbara Sanchez, age 21, the legitimate daughter of Juan Domingo Sanchez and Simona Chavez. Both are citizens of Belen jurisdiction, which is Belen, New Mexico is where that is now. It was not New Mexico at the time. Father Bernal questioned Francisco. Francisco stated that he and Maria Barbara were related in the second degree of affinity as a result of the carnal relations he had with her first cousin, Maria Manuela Arreo. He had also caused his intended to lose her virginity after promising to marry her. He added that he had lived in the area for more than 20 years. That is a special piece of information too. Maria Barbara stated that they were not related and that she was a lifelong resident of that jurisdiction. So we have a place of birth for Maria Barbara. Now, because there was this possible second degree of affinity, they needed to provide a family tree for Maria Barbara Sanchez and her first cousin, Maria Manuela Arreo. And they did. We learn that, we're going to call them by their middle names, Barbara and Manuela are first cousins. Their mothers were sisters, Simona Chavez and Gertrude Chavez, sisters. And their mother was Juana. And Juana is marked as a Kiowa Indian of the Kiowa tribe. And so in this church record, you can see that we've got, estimated birth years. We've got full names, names of parents, names of grandparents, names of aunts and cousins, and a record of the woman's Native American heritage of the Kiowa tribe. Isn't that fantastic? Over here in this record, and this one I found in Ancestry.com, these are suspension records from the old Mount Zion Presbyterian Church. This is dated November 1st, 1853. And unfortunately, our dear sister Cecilia Davidson has been listed as guilty of immoral and unchristian conduct because she hit Elizabeth Jane Parks with a club or a stick. Not only do we get this kind of humorous accusation, but we get the testimony of witnesses. So we can go down here and see the questions that were asked. Elizabeth Jane Parks, being called and sworn, gives this testimony. Sometime in August, she was in the orchard at home. Cecilia Davidson came to her and said, "I have caught you stealing. You always would steal." And Cecilia then broke a stick and threw the top at me and then struck me 3 times with the other piece. She then told me to leave the orchard and took up the basket of peaches that I had gathered and emptied it. She then called me a name that is not decent to mention here or anywhere else. Well, unfortunately, other witnesses do testify to that exact thing happening. However, Cecilia, in her defense, says that she was first told by Elizabeth Jane Parks that she would be split down for having said she was stealing those peaches. It goes on further. 2 other witnesses said that, yes, they did see Cecilia Davidson come into the orchard, accused Jane of stealing, and then got a stick, broke it in 2, threw it at Jane, and told her to leave. She did hit Jane 3 times with a stick, in which the stick was held by both hands. So I guess Jane must have taken a real beating. Well, Cecilia was found guilty of being unchristian-like and was encouraged to repent, and then she could come back to church. So, you never know what you might find. Like I said, in these church records, in this Case of Cecilia, we didn't necessarily learn much about her genealogically speaking, but we learned a little bit about her temperament, didn't we? She was not going to have any stealing, and she took matters into her own hands and apparently beat her neighbor with a stick. So, if there's a little bit of anger management problems within this family, now you know. It came from Cecilia. Good times. Anyway, thanks for joining me today on our Genealogy Tip Tuesday. I want to encourage you again to take a look at this book or make it one of your new purchases for the month of March. How to Find Your Family History in U.S. Church Records, a Genealogist's Guide. It's going to tell you exactly where to go to find these remarkable church records, and there's 1,000,001 places you need to look for them. So definitely take a look at this guide. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also wanted to share with you, if you want to pop over to Facebook and join the Genealogy Reporter, we have some fun and inspiring videos there as well. Thanks for joining me today, and good luck in your research. Bye-bye.